Lesson 3, Question 1. There is evidence that low self-esteem, people are less evaluatively consistent in their self-descriptions. When Campbell and Fair examined how subjects rated themselves on sets of adjectives that were either uniformly positive or uniformly negative, subjects with low self-esteem not only gave ratings that were on average, less positive or more negative, but their ratings within each set exhibited more individual scatter or greater variance. High self-esteem subjects strongly and consistently endorsed the positive adjectives and rejected the negative adjectives. Low self-esteem subjects did not. In contrast, strongly and consistently endorse the negative adjectives and reject the positive adjectives. Rather, they gave more intermediate ratings and more variable ratings to both types of adjectives. Therefore, it appears that low and high self-esteem individuals differ, not only in the average positivity of their self-views, but also in the extent to which their self-views are evaluatively consistent with one another. Lesson 3, Question 2. The power and value of being literate in a literate society are played out every day around the world. Many individuals, and in fact whole societies, make considerable sacrifices to become literate, just as others take it for granted. Societies that do not practice literate behavior are often squalid, undernourished in mind and body, repressive of human rights and dignity, brutal and harsh. Present-day examples are easy to list, but in fact this has always been the case. As Samuel Johnson observed more than 2 centuries ago, the mass of every people must be barbarous where there is no printing. We admit that various forms of barbarity can be found in all societies, but they are much more prevalent where literate behavior is absent. Literacy and quality of life go hand in hand. With literacy comes the power of belonging to a privileged group, and the freedom that derives from that power. Frederick Douglass, who struggled as a slave to learn to read, said it best, once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Lesson 3, Question 3. Culturally shared views of the self have been suggested to have profound influences on basic attention processes. In Western cultures, individuals are encouraged to discover their internal attributes, such as desires and personal goals, and therefore they may be expected to focus their attention on events that are relevant to such desires and goals. As a result, their attention may become focused. This cognitive style, which is anchored in a focal object in lieu of its context, has been called analytic. In contrast, in Eastern cultures, individuals are more attuned to various aspects of ever-important social relations, and, as a consequence, they may be expected to attend more broadly to a focal object as well as to its surrounding context, drawing inferences about the relationship between the object and its context. This mode of cognition has been called holistic. These predictions have been borne out. For example, when presented with an animated vignette of an underwater scene, and subsequently asked to remember what they saw, European Americans were more likely to recall focal objects, whereas Japanese were more likely to refer to contextual information as well as relationships between the focal objects. 인류업 대신에 호리스틱 총체적인 빅니에트 짤막한 장면. Lesson 3, Question 4. When a patient chooses to buy, he or she becomes a part of demand, wanting to buy drugs, plastic surgery, artificial hip, etc. But not doing so leaves that potential patient invisible, part of latent demand that does not effectively participate in the market. That extra demand will be revealed if the price goes low enough. For example, consider the development of an artificial heart. If each heart costs $1 million, they would only be used in matters of life and death. If further development reduced the cost of artificial hearts to $100,000 each, more people would get them. The artificial hearts would still be used only for people with serious illnesses, but they might be implanted long before a person's natural heart gave out. If the cost of making an artificial heart dropped to $100, one would be readily available to anyone who needed it. Consider what would happen if the cost of an artificial heart dropped to $10 and could be easily implanted during a 15-minute visit to the doctor. Some people who had never been ill but were just worried might have new hearts implanted. Lesson 3. Question 5. Historians do more than select and interpret evidence. They also organize the evidence in order to create an understandable and, they hope, persuasive narrative. Chronological order is generally part of making history plausible, especially when the causes of change are central, although in practice much historical writing must go back and forth in time in order to pick up various threads of a complex story. Historians also make events understandable by casting them in a particular light, or giving their narrative a particular tone. For example, a historian might highlight historical ironies, such as the way President George W. Bush once criticized nation-building, in which the U.S. rebuilds a country's economic and political structure when its government fails. But later, as a consequence of launching a war in Iraq, Bush had to attempt exactly that. Historians can also romanticize events, as did those who described John F. Kennedy's term as president as Camelot, alluding to a Broadway musical about the heroic King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Similarly, one historian may view a certain chain of events as improvement, while another may perceive it as a decline. These are just a few of the ways historians may make narrative sense of history. Lesson 3. Question 6. Prestige is a particular form of status that only humans recognize. Most animals observe the advantages of dominance, such as being the most powerful or aggressive individual, and these are also important for humans. Fearsome warriors are celebrated universally. Prestige is almost the opposite. Prestigious individuals are ones worthy of learning. From they are experts, older people, and if someone has prestige in one field, they become high-status individuals, and their influence won't be limited to their field. We are likely to copy all their decisions. Indeed, prestige may have evolved as a way to enhance the benefits of cultural transmission. Success in one area of life affords someone the status of general opinion leader. We want to learn from successful individuals or even simply be associated with them in some way so that their reputation rubs off on us. That's why a golfing hero can sell you a watch.